Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Challengers Chatroom, your one-stop shop for all things SGC. My name is Sam Smax Hyde, and I'm joined by Matthew Cubby Samuelson, my constant co-host, my beautiful, beautiful co-host, and
Oh,
also the big boss behind the scenes, Crono from Challengers Uprising himself. How are you two gentlemen doing this fine, fine evening?
I'm doing great and thrilled that we have Chrono joining us on the podcast as well for our last episode of season 1 of Cup. Chrono, how you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. I flew down to Dallas this morning for our finals tomorrow, and we've been spending all day here getting things ready and really excited for it.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I'm really excited for the finals tomorrow. Oh, we have some legendary Titan teams going head to head there. I wish I could be there with you guys, but I've got all of my setup here. You guys are gonna have to stay with the scuffed camera, which may or may not go kaboom on this show as well. But yeah, I'm really excited to have you on the show and give everyone a little peek at who is behind the scenes over here at Challengers Uprising. Very excited to get that revealed for us on the stream today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to hide in the shadows.
Yeah.
Pops in when appropriate, but unfortunately for us, we're forcing you to be here for 45 minutes. So we appreciate you saying yes, but I think before we dive into Challengers Uprising and even your background with the new esports, we kind of have to go over like how you originally got into esports in the first place and kind of go over like the team ASIO, like how you competed and all that. I guess like what's your kind of esports journey, like where did that start off for you?
So probably like most people in esports, I started off as a player. Um, we went to a local LAN. There was like a diamond team, and we upset a team in grand finals that had some challenger players. And so I was feeling pretty, cocky after that. And so I just marched straight up to the ASIO sponsor booth and was like, give me a sponsorship. And they were like, okay. And so
Whoa.
ASIO Esports started that way. And we went to a couple more lands and it was a lot of fun. But uh, just for context, this was like during Ardent meta. And
Oh
so
yeah.
my elo was maybe a tiny bit inflated uh, because of that. So when we started competing against real challenger teams, I kind of realized like I don't have the time to practice to play at this level. Like I've got a job, I've got a family. Like
Hmm.
I'm gonna move out of a player role, and like all players who can't keep up, I moved into a coaching role, and had a little bit of fun doing that. We had some LAN tournaments with the players. Performed really well for the elo that we had. We were still high diamond at that
Hmm.
time, and we're getting third and fourth at lands, which was at least enough to cover our travel expenses.
Hmm.
So that was great. But eventually, I even brought in some more coaches, brought in a couple of more rosters, and moved into more of a general manager type role. Again, those who can't coach move to general manager. So my evolution started as a player, then coach, then general manager, and once I realized I couldn't do that anymore, I moved into TO. So here we are. Uh, it's a joke. Please don't be offended, other TOs.
No, I actually, it's funny because I actually took the same path, so I fully relate with you there. Except instead of being a TO, I'm a caster now. So yeah.
Sure.
Uh, yeah, but I mean, I think you're being pretty humble with the team that you were actually a GM for, because the team that you were a GM for is actually in the finals today and tomorrow for Upsurge and Cup itself. I mean, you worked with ANEW Esports
Hmm.
and brought in a lot of big names, and whether it was coaches or players, and you guys really built a legacy here in amateur working with that team.
Yeah, and ANEW was really just AZO rebranded in a way, right?
Hmm.
Because we carried over all of our rosters and players and staff and everything. So it's the same program, just a different name. And we've kind of, once you get to these highest levels of competition, the teams don't like to stick around for longer than typically a few events. And like the big one, obviously, is Scouting Grounds.
Hmm.
So you have multiple iterations of the rosters, and then you have periods of downtimes where maybe you focus on things like player development, like we had an academy roster for points this last year, even when we didn't have a main roster. And that was just because, quite frankly, there weren't really any events worth playing in for those, top tier players. At least nothing that was enough to warrant their time away from solo queue.
Hmm.
So um, it a lot of it was just about finding ways to fill the time between those rosters. But the real trick to being a GM, especially at the highest levels, is your ability to recruit. And I have so many good stories about rosters that would have been, and then at the last minute fell apart. And it's funny to think about that, considering that the rosters that we did end up with have been so successful.
Yeah.
We won last year with Mash and Inori and Five Fire and Sheep and Zig, and then we put together almost an entirely new roster this year. Five Fire was the only holdover,
Hmm.
and
And Zig's still the coach.
yeah, Zig is still the coach. That's true. Yep, but they're very successful in a lot of the same ways, and a
Yeah.
lot of that I think is because they're veterans, right?
Hmm.
Uh, I know I told you guys earlier in the season in Discord just privately that at the end of the scouting ground circuit, you will see the teams with the veterans rise to the top, right?
Yeah.
And that's because they don't feel pressure in the same way that a lot of these newer players feel when they get to tournaments. So
Hmm.
once the playoffs hit, they're not really phased by, oh my God, there's $15,000 on the line and scouts are watching me. What do I do? I'm so nervous. I might make a mistake. Like that's not really going through their head. So from a purely performance-based perspective, that's one of the reasons why I've always liked working with veterans for the scouting ground circuit specifically, because when it comes down to crunch time, they are always going to deliver.
Yeah.
It seems like working with veterans would also kind of be rather difficult from the outside looking in. Of course, I've never been in your shoes, but in a system that is really built for turnaround as far as rosters go, because the good players are going to move all the way up to academy and LCS, and the bad players are going to get cycled out and stuff like that. Uh, how is that how is that for you? Just like cycling in all of these new players all the time, like that had to have been very very difficult to maintain the same level of success. But we've seen it for ANEW for quite some time. So, uh, what do you think? Like now that you've taken a step back, what do you think like the key to success kind of was for you in that role?
So I think it's twofold. One is you have to develop and maintain good relationships with the players that you have
Hmm.
first, because players talk. They all talk to each other. They're all
Oh
part
yeah.
of the same community. So if you don't treat your players right, they are going to tell other players, and you're not going to be able to recruit.
Yep.
So it's really important that you treat them right and enable them and help them realize their dreams. Um, and then the other part of that is constant scouting and constant player development, right?
Hmm.
So that kind of goes back to like working with academy teams, and I say academy meaning amateur academy, not LCS academy. Trying to develop talent in between the big events. Occasionally, you'll have a player kind of rise to the top through that system.
Yeah.
You can add them to your main roster that way. It doesn't always work out, but I think all of the major players in the scouting grounds today have gone through some form of academy system in their past, whether it's 4 years ago or last year. So even a lot of the 100 Thieves guys that were like Tenacity, for example, played on Matrix Esports, which was a more or less B team for ANEW last scouting ground split. So um, there is definitely talent there, and you have to outwork the other teams and GMs in terms of scouting.
Yeah.
But then you also have to work with coaches that are actually capable of developing these guys, right? And
Hmm.
that's maybe the hardest part. There are, I would say, 4 coaches in amateur that are actually worth having, like worth their salt. And that's not me trying to insult anybody. I just think there's a very big divide in game knowledge, and players will sniff that out if you are a coach that knows less than the players.
Oh yeah.
It
Yeah.
happened to
So,
me.
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
that was not pretty when it happened to me. So
Yeah. I
that
mean,
was a rude awakening.
a part of it as a coach is obviously like there's a lot more than just game knowledge. It's like managing personalities, and the way that like would always phrase it is that like them as five, they're gonna have different views and perspectives on things, and they have to actually like help fill me in on some of
hmm
the things that I don't know. Like they have more knowledge of how a matchup goes than I might, but also like I have more knowledge because I get the bird's eye view and I can see like, hey, you guys messed this up, like big picture, and it's like work as a team of six. But it's interesting how you think there's like a smaller coaching pool in amateur, but actually the thing that I kind of want to pick your brain more on is scouting talent. Like that's something
hmm
that is really tricky, I think, to do in amateur because rosters do change every single like tournament cycle that we have, specifically like around SGC, just depending on who wants to play, who doesn't, who else is good that's coming into the scene, who else is phasing out, whether they're going to the next level or just decide not to play. What's something that like you would do as a GM to kind of scout talent? Like was it something like where you would kind of pick players' brains, or like are you having players like actually like send you raffle files and like have coaches go through their perspectives and stuff like that?
I wish it was as simple as asking for raffle files, but the truth is, maybe it's an ego thing, but players want to be courted, right?
Yeah.
And if you're going to them and saying, "Hey, send me replays," they're like, Psh, "Who are you? Get away from me!" And it's just like, well, we're actually pretty good, you know. Maybe maybe you can work with. No, no, get out of here. Uh, so it's I compare it a lot to like collegiate sports. You know, the top colleges when they are going after the best players, they are sending them love letters, they are texting them, they are, you know, doing everything within their power legally to quote unquote woo these players into coming to play for them.
Most of the time legally, yeah.
Most of the time, right? Or at least that's what we know about.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and just in terms of identifying the talent, I wish I could say like, oh, we've got this really complex, cool system for, you know, finding these diamonds in the rough through, you know, data or something. But the truth is, it's the eye test, and
Yeah.
it's not just me. Like, I would always have a core group of people that I felt very confident in their judgment,
Mhm.
and we would just kind of talk it out. Like, okay, who is your top 5 prospects at top lane that's not currently signed? And we'd go through the list, talk about, you know, what their strengths and weaknesses are, how they'd fit into a team. A lot. One thing that a lot of people don't realize, especially when it comes to building a League of Legends roster, is building a roster that isn't just like 5 carry players, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's really easy to look at stats and be like, oh, this guy's the number 1 jungler, this guy's the number 1 top laner, this guy's the number 1 AD carry. Well, okay, fine, but they're funneling resources into those players.
Yeah.
You know, how do they perform when they are sack side? You know, like if we put them in a 2v1 situation, are they just going to int and cause us to hard lose one side of the map, or are they going to be able to absorb that pressure and, you know, allow us to be successful on the other side of the map? So just kind of accounting for all that and then finding the right puzzle pieces. And I think ANEW has a really good puzzle piece like system, if you will, just with like Rodov is probably the best sackside top laner in the
Yeah.
tournament, I think.
He is. Yeah.
Um, and then you can just funnel those resources into Mike Young and Shoryu and Five Fire and play bot side around the map, get the dragons. Um, so if we put someone else in that role, would they be as successful? I don't know, but uh, it's certainly obvious that it's working for them so far.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as this person who has all of this knowledge about how the inner workings, happen, and is now like on the staff of Cup, but also mostly just a spectator as far as the individual games go. Um, which teams would you say that in Cup or just in SGC as a whole uh, are doing well in that regard? Because there are 20 some. There are only 8 now as far as the top 8 goes, but across the whole season, how do you feel about like how these teams have been doing as far as that goes?
So in terms of like performance or like talent development, because those are
The talent development, that's
okay.
really what I'm looking at here.
Yeah, I mean,
'Cause it's easy to say that TFT sucked.
I got a lot of friends on TFT. I love
Wow.
them, but
I'm talking
I
about
know,
the
I know.
performance in that
Yeah.
regard.
Yeah, yeah.
So the 100 Thieves Next obviously won that competition running away, right?
Yeah.
They took a team with almost entirely rookies and no veterans, no one with academy experience, and just ran through the scouting ground circuit, stomping everybody, right? And that's never happened in amateur before, in the history of amateur, as long as I've been around at least.
No.
So in terms of scouting and talent development, they win that competition running away. There are other orgs that I think have made an effort to develop talent, maybe even over winning now, which is respectable. Just different goals for different orgs, I think. Um, and I think like I'll use Supernova as a good example of that. uh, they picked up always plan ahead,
Yep.
no D. And you'll have to forgive me because I'm not super familiar with his history, but I don't remember seeing him in amateur prior to him landing at Supernova. And at least at the time they picked him up, Supernova was considered like top tier. Like, it was ANEW and Supernova last year in Scouting Grounds, and you wanted to be on one of those two teams.
Mm-hmm.
So for them to make a decision to go with a rookie player, at least in the competitive sense, going into Scouting Grounds was really bold, and I think it's worked out for them pretty well. Obviously, they made top 8, and it's just a matter of like how well that roster can continue to develop, as they head into playoffs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you like, obviously, if you want to win now, 5 veterans is great. It's easy. They have experience. They're good under pressure. They're going to communicate effectively. All that fun stuff. They're going to know what to do in the right situations. Um, but if your goal is developing talent, I actually favor a roster where you have like a healthy mix of new players and veterans, right? So you rely on the veterans to help with decision making in game, to be your rock, to be able to do things that new players might not be able to do. And then you have new rookies that are very talented, and you kind of enable them to shine while also teaching them how to play the game at the highest levels the correct way.
Yeah.
So I really like that model, and I appreciate that a lot of the orgs are following that model. I think that's actually does more for talent development in North America than just trying to win now. And I'd like to see more orgs go down that direction.
When you say like more orgs go down that direction, do you want to see more orgs do what 100 Thieves did as well? Where like they have a third team that, yes, they are top tier of amateur, but also like that functions as a feeder team to their big teams as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Scout, the amateur scene in general has grown significantly this year, right?
Yeah.
Like I think the viewer record for like last year's Scouting Grounds was like 300 or 400 or something like that, and then we hit like 1100 this year, right?
Yeah. It was 400, and I know that I've seen Big League break that multiple times, UPL break that multiple times, and then like
Mhm.
Cup break that multiple times too.
Yeah, and it's not a coincidence that on most of those streams, 100 Thieves is playing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? They bring a name brand and they bring a fan base with them, and that attention, a lot of people might not realize how important that is for the amateur scene as a whole, but having more viewers in the scene attracts more sponsors to the scene. And the more sponsors you have, the higher prize pools you have, the more orgs can partner with sponsors so that they can hire competent coaches, they can more effectively develop these players. And it's kind of like it's not trickle down economics, it's trickle up economics, right?
Yeah.
The more we're able to effectively develop talent in North America's amateur scene, the more talented players we're going to have in LCS a year or two down the road. So it's kind of a you support us now, and we're going to produce good players for you down the road type of situation with 100 Thieves. And I think they have absolutely done it the correct way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we're going to see a lot of LCS orgs able to replicate it, quite frankly.
They
It's
have a
tough.
lot of resources at their disposal.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
do. And quite frankly, they have done an amazing job.
Yeah.
It's not just a matter of, well, of course they're winning everything. They've got a brand behind them. Well, no, these were still rookie players that were coached and honestly worked hard
Yeah.
to be able to compete with all these guys that have been around for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, I give a lot of credit to like Fallen Bandit and the rest of the staff over there for working
Hmm.
with these guys. And hey, it's already paid off, right? Like Poom, he has a long way to go in terms of improving as a support player, but he's playing in the LCS and doing that. And Kenvi took the next steps, and Tenacity's on the roster as well, playing in Scrim. So it's kind of fun to see those guys get bumped up. And I know that Smax and I have had this conversation a lot. We really want to see more franchise teams
Oh yeah.
hop in. And it's
Agree.
funny that it's only Zix because TSM Juniors was something that was started by Zix. And now that he's on 100 Thieves with Papa Smithy, they seem to be the ones that are really the driving force behind this in amateur and making sure that there's actually a funnel for their talent.
Hmm.
'Cause it makes a lot of sense business wise. Like
Right.
they get to hand mold a player like Kenby and know if they want to sign him and move him up or not. Not to mention the fact that they get to work with him. Like I definitely want to see more teams take that approach.
It's also at least for Cubby and I especially, it's a little bit selfish because 3 months ago, if you told me that I'd be interacting with Papa Smithy in Twitch chat and like he'd be
Yeah.
hearing my casting, I would not have believed you. That is
Yeah.
awesome. That's literally my favorite caster to ever listen to in League of Legends. So that's also pretty awesome. But also just as like someone who has just such a big passion for player development, especially and watching one of the like very reputable orgs in LCS take that next step is that's a pun. I just realized it. Take the next step and make a team in SGC is so cool to watch. I'm like so honored that I've gotten to have a part in that as well. And for you, Chrono, as well, taking the step to make Challengers Uprising and stepping down from ANEW, I'm sure that's gotta have driven some of your decision as well. Seeing like the what you can do from the TO side as like a player development standpoint. How did that really drive your decision to start Cup?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like a lot of people, like I have the same dream of I want to have a professional esports career, right? I would love to be able to do this full time and make a living off of it. And what I felt when I was at ANEW, we won scouting grounds and we had multiple players get picked up, and a lot of them even ended up on LCS teams, not just academy teams, which is great. Um, and at the end of the day, I kind of looked around and I was just like, well, what's next? And I came to the realization that because LCS is franchised, we can't move up to LCS, but we're already at the top of amateur. And where do we go from here? And I looked around in other regions and I saw like Europe is a great example with EU Masters. They've got a space to fill the in between, right? With between amateur and pro play, they've got this EU Masters event, and it's amazing. You know,
Yeah.
most of the talent that comes into LEC comes through EU Masters, probably all of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, if we can't grow beyond where we are, then we need to break that ceiling ourselves. And so my hope was that by moving into the TO space, we could kind of start to make a more straightforward path to pro. Because right now, depending on who you ask, you might be advised if you want to become a professional player to go to Korea and play solo queue, to start streaming and build a brand, to play collegiate, to play amateur, to focus on solo queue. And the truth is, no one really knows, right? Because the players that have come up from North America have gone through all of those different paths. And I think it's really challenging as a player to determine, well, what should I do? If my dream is to go pro, how do I get there from here? And no one has a straightforward answer to give them, right? And so my hope was that we could kill two birds with one stone and kind of create a more straightforward process. And that is not just because uh, we're creating a tournament, but it's also about promoting the players, right? We're
Right.
creating a lot of content. You know, this podcast is a great example of that. We're talking about the players. We're talking about talent development.
Yeah.
You know, we're coming up with player rankings and working to help LCS orgs scout some of these players, right? So I just felt like there was a lot more opportunities on in this space than there was from the general manager space in terms of really influencing change in the amateur scene in North America. So ultimately, we decided this was the best way for us to reach some of the goals that we had, and we just kind of took a leap of faith, and it's worked out really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that I know that we've talked about a lot. And I know that I think not everyone knows this, but I've actually like had sessions with like casters talking about branding because I'm a digital marketer and it's important. I know that like we've mentioned as well that like players in amateur, a lot of them want to focus on the game, and I respect that like very much as a competitor. I think it's admirable to like be as good at your craft as you can. Unfortunately, building up a brand, it matters for whether it's picking up a casting gig or for a lot of these players getting an amateur spot or an LCS spot in the future. Like, what are some of the ways that you think Cup A has helped that? But also, like, what are some things, like some tips, like you give players who are listening to this? Like, what are ways that they can like start to build up their own brand and kind of make a name for themselves?
Yeah, I mean, so branding comes from just uh, being recognizable, right? And
Yeah.
it's not a secret that GMs in LCS specifically want players with brand names attached to them, especially an academy. It's easier to justify for things like recruiting sponsors, which then pay their salaries. It's a lot easier to justify bringing on someone to academy that has 100,000 followers rather than 500, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So branding is 100% important, and I actually don't think a lot of players really understand how important. Just a great example is like player headshots, right? A lot of players don't have them. I understand it because personally, I'm a very private person. I don't like, to put myself out there when I don't have to.
Yeah.
But I think if your goal is to play esports professionally, that's something that you have to kind of overcome and realize that I have to put my brand out there not just as a player, but as a personality, right?
Hmm.
I have to, you know, really promote the things that I do well. I have to engage with my audience. I have to engage with professionals and my peers and establish a network. Uh, there's so many things that players may not realize they can do that they need to do if they want to realize that pro dream.
Yeah. And speaking with good play can help, but there
Right.
there are more things you have to do as well. And yeah, I'm curious about like how did you approach this too? Like when you were managing an amateur team, and like what can like some of the teams do as well? Because I know that, for example, like Frostfire, they're a really good team. They made top 8 after kind
Yeah.
of slumping early in the year. They came back. They took their semifinal and cup to 5 games. They won in 5 games yesterday to third place in cup and secure their spot in SGC. And they actually don't have a team to my knowledge. Like they don't
Yeah.
have a Twitter account. It's just 5 players. And I know that like there are other bigger amateur orgs like ANEW, like Supernova, but what do you think some of these teams can do to like really up their game and help their players get marketed as well?
So I think it comes down to kind of coaching them and teaching them, right?
Hmm.
Because a good example when I bring staff on, even to Cup, not just like when I was at ANEW, but I speak with a lot of the staff about social media.
Hmm.
I actually sit down and show them examples of people who have ruined their career because of something stupid they said on social media 5 years ago, right? And it's happened to a lot of people who have grown a lot since then, but they are essentially just considered damaged goods, at least for the foreseeable future,
Hmm.
because of something they did in their past that was just stupid.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is don't put things out there that you wouldn't want your future employers to see, and realize that future employers do look at your social media. That's probably the main way that they're going to research you when they're looking to pick up players.
Yeah.
Uh, the other thing is orgs can help grow players' brands just through things like we would do giveaways at ANEW, right?
Hmm.
We had some monitor sponsors that were great, and we would create giveaways that's like, oh, follow Fire and get registered to win this monitor, and just general things like that to help grow their brand, get more people following them. Sure, some of them will unfollow once the giveaway is over, but
Yeah.
I think once you do that repeatedly and you promote them and tag them in your social media posts repeatedly, hype them up through highlights, things like that, content, those are all things that help a player become more recognizable
Hmm.
and help grow their reputation. So those are things that teams and orgs can do to better support the players in the space.
I'm taking notes myself as well. As a caster in the space, I'm definitely taking notes. Well, that's really cool. I mean, Cubby here is a digital marketer, so he already has this advantage. I'm sure he already knew. Just prodding the question, but I thank you for giving me this information, Chrono. I appreciate
You
it.
should have taken my 30-minute crash course on how you can improve your branding and social use on
Is that still
marketing
available?
spec. Oh yeah, it's
I'm
free to
not doing
you.
anything after this.
Free to use. I
9.99
am. I'm on
US,
the UPL cast.
Oh, it's true.
Actually. Yeah.
True. Oh
Yeah.
man.
Later
So
date.
yeah, so speaking of the UPL finals and also the cup finals tomorrow, that's going to be the last game of season 1 of Challengers Uprising. And I'm sure the people want to know, Chrono, when are we getting a season 2?
Good question. So we are still working out all the details, but what I can tell you is that there is going to be a season 2. It is not going to be a best of 2 format.
It's
We've
gonna-
heard you loud and clear, right?
Maryville very much appreciates that.
Yep, yep.
Oh man.
So, and not to go off on a tangent here, but I did want to kind of explain the reasoning behind best of 2 in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
We were the last league to get into the scouting ground circuit, right? And it was actually by the time that we got into the circuit, every single day had been claimed by another league for
Mhm.
broadcasts. So
Yep.
the other tier 1 leagues like Big and Upsurge, they had already been operating for like 4 or 5 weeks by the time we got to start our league. So we had to cram an 8-week league into 4 weeks, and we basically had to pick one day to do it, right? Because if we did 2 days, then it would get really messy with all the other leagues, and we just didn't
Yeah.
want to make the players have to play that many games, right? Because
Yeah.
they're already playing so many.
Yeah.
So we had a choice. We're like, well, do we do best of 1s? Do we do best of 3s? If we do best of 3s, we're going to be up till 3 in the morning. If we do best of 1s, there's going to be a lot of upsets and people are going to be upset. So we felt like best of 2 was a good compromise given the situation. It's probably not the format we would have chosen, had we been able to start like with a full 8-week league. But
Yeah.
the situation is what it is, and you play the hand you're dealt. So
It was pretty exciting. You got
I
a lot of just
I kind of
one-off
liked it.
games. Yeah.
Like I feel like Americans don't like draws because they aren't used to that, whereas like
mhm,
over in Europe they're more okay with draws. But
right,
at least it was different, right? Like it was different than the other leagues, and from a broadcast perspective, I also very much appreciated that I knew I was probably going to be done around the same time every day.
right.
Kind of nice
Yeah,
too.
we knew we had 4 games no matter what. Doesn't matter who wins
Yeah.
or loses, 4 games, and then we're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
So
mean, after all of the semifinals and the third place match last night went to 5 games, I'm pretty happy with how it worked out on the Wednesdays and everything. Oh man, yesterday was kind of brutal. I'm gonna need to just shut up after this so I can save my voice for tomorrow. Because if that's gonna go 5 games as well, oh, I might I might I don't know what's gonna happen, but hopefully I'm okay. But anyway, so you mentioned how you're changing the cup is changing from best of 2 to something else, probably best of
mhm.
3, I would imagine. Um, what else do you feel has been like uh a big success as far as season 1, or what else do you think that you'd be looking at changing for season 2 as well?
So a lot of the things that we did season 1 that I was really pleased with were around marketing. Um,
Oh,
I
yeah.
felt, yeah, I felt like we had a different approach than a lot of the other leagues, or at least how they were when we started, in that we would actively go out and try to recruit new viewers. We didn't just kind of hope we grew organically, right?
mhm.
And so a lot of that would be partnering with content creators, like we partnered with GBay, and that was really successful. Got a lot of
Yep.
attention on the amateur scene.
Lots of
Uh,
memes.
Lots of memes. Yep, yep. So I was very happy about that, and we've had a lot of other content too, just like the podcast and player rankings and articles and hype videos. Like I was really pleased with our content because I feel like the marketing is what gets viewers to come tune in, but the production quality and the content is what keeps them around. So I was really happy with both of those aspects, with the marketing and the content and production quality.
Mhm.
So I'd look to maybe clean a few things up, but generally continue down the same path that we've been walking down on those 2 fronts.
Nice.
Most of our changes, and we don't have any of them fleshed out yet, so I can't say because I don't know. But I imagine most of the changes will be on the TO front, right? We might look at a different format. We might look at different divisions or something like that. It'll probably be more on the operational way we do things, and we'll be leaving the production and the content and the marketing kind of where they are and just continuing to enable them.
It's good news for me and Cubby.
That was Smax's next question. It's like, what what's the contract coming through? Let's take care of
Oh,
that now. No, but I mean, season 1, it's been fun, like being a part of this, but also like watching it grow. And yeah, I mean, obviously, I think the day we had the GBay video, we were also blessed to have a 100 Thieves Next versus Maryville game, which at the time, ANEW wasn't yet playing at the level they are. So that was probably the best match and hypest match in amateur. So it was fun to get a lot of viewers, and it's been fun to watch you guys intelligently navigate the marketing scene, because
Yep.
we don't have any like hands on that. So it's like, oh, there's a G-Bay video. Oh, we're at 1K viewers. Well, this is sweet.
Yeah.
Production.
Yeah.
So very much appreciate that. In terms of like starting at least to like tie the bow on things here, before we give a little bit of a preview to what the UPL finals, the Cup finals, and also SGC as a whole will be. What are like, I guess, with season 2 of Cup, are you guys looking at any other games besides possibly League of Legends? And also, like, is there like any thank yous like you wanna hand out, like whether it's to sponsors, to people like that helped out, anything like that?
Sure. Yeah. To be determined, I would say on the other games, right?
Yeah.
I think we've certainly considered it. No decisions have been made. I think
Yeah.
it's going to be kind of looking around the space and see if there's a need for it, and there's also a desire on our part to be in that space.
Mhm.
So that's something that we're going to have to continue to discuss, like behind the scenes. But I wouldn't rule it out in any way, because it is something that interests us. When I was at ANEW, we definitely had multiple games, and
Yeah.
I had just as much fun, traveling to the CS:GO competitions as I did with the League of Legends competitions. So to be determined. And then just the thank yous. There's a lot. Full disclosure, I just recorded a nice speech with thank yous that are going to be a lot more formal and clean than what I'm going to say here on the podcast. But just in general, the viewers, you guys are amazing. Thank you for embracing us. The players and this team staff, I know we came in late. I know the scene was saturated. You guys didn't care and jumped in and embraced us anyways. So thank you. The games have been amazing, and you have been amazing to work with. And then just the staff, right? Like whether that's the producers or the content creators, the website developers, the TOs, the graphics guys, like the stuff you guys have done has been top notch, and we would not have been able to be successful without you. So thank you guys so much.
Well, this wouldn't exist without you too, Chrono. So we very much appreciate it, and fun having you on the broadcast, kind of,
Yeah.
or this podcast at least, to talk about, kind of more of the behind the scenes of Cup, and give people a little bit of knowledge in your background, as you do like to work in the shadows, but always nice to talk to our wonderful leader here on the Cup podcast. So really, really appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Actually, before you go, I have one last question for you.
Ooh.
Sure.
Just so people know what they're getting into when someone hits spam ping the commissioner.
Oh boy.
Just to get to know you just a little bit. Where did the name Crono come from? I've been curious for a while. Is it
Ooh.
Echo? Are you an Echo main?
No, Crono is, I'm gonna date myself here, is the main character of my favorite video game. It's called Chrono Trigger, and
Oh.
you see my Discord image. That's actually the image of the character.
Oh.
If you ever get a chance to go back and play that on a Super Nintendo ROM, highly recommend it. I play it like 3 times a year. It's an RPG, and it's actually, the art was done by Akira Toriyama, who illustrated Dragon Ball. So
Oh.
it's got
Oh,
a very
wow.
similar art style. And
I thought that it was Dragon Ball when I saw
Yep.
the picture. So
I gotta
guess
go
that's
through
why.
Discord and try to find your picture now.
Well, cool. All right. That was just a little question that I had for you. But yeah, again,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming onto the podcast with us. Thank you for your insight into Challengers Uprising and your background as well. It's been a pleasure listening to you talk about all that stuff.
Awesome.
And
Thank you guys
thanks for
having
warming
me.
up the arena for us tomorrow too.
Yeah,
Yep.
true.
Yep. It's gonna
Yeah.
be great.
Yeah, it's gonna be really fun.
I'm excited. We've got some special content in the works that I think we're gonna release probably tomorrow morning. So I hope you guys are excited. We're excited,
I
and
am.
awesome. All right, you guys have a great day, and I will talk to you guys probably tomorrow.
Probably.
You as
Thanks so
well.
much, Chrono. See you around.
Mhm.
Thank you. All right. So, speaking of tomorrow, we have a crazy, crazy matchup that we have all been dying to see ever since it happened on Big League Finals. ANEW versus 100 Next are playing in 2 best-of-5s back-to-back nights in a row, once tonight and once tomorrow. UPL and then Challengers Uprising. Cubby, you're going to be on the desk for both of them. What do you think about this matchup? Tell us.
It's interesting because these guys, like, going into the matchup, they're actually 6-6 head-to-head throughout all of SGC.
That's with the
'Cause
old roster, though.
yes, it is with the old roster. Like, a lot of people are missing out on the fact that it's the old roster, and when it comes to ANEW, I actually feel like I feel like the core community of SGC realizes, like, how talented this team is, but I feel like
Yeah.
the somewhat outside, like, the people that, like, kinda follow them pop in, they look at ANEW and they go like, "Oh, you know, like, they got a bunch of, like, washed up LCS players or, like, academy players in this roster." That is not the case. Like, these guys, especially Five Fire, and I feel like Mike Young too, um, have been playing very well. Shoryu has been and Rodolph have been rocks for the entire year. You can always rely on Shoryu in winter. You know, he has this champion pool that I feel like a lot of other supports aren't playing. Like, he's playing Braum Rakan to a lot of success, whereas other supports are going for other stuff. He even pulled out Pantheon in that
Yeah,
series against
that
Polaris,
was
which I
badass.
really liked. ANEW is on fire, and I have them coming into 100 Thieves next as not heavy favorites, but definite favorites for the next 2 nights. And I really feel like it's going to be up to 100 Thieves next, just what kind of game they bring to the table, right? Because we saw them
Yep.
3-0 Radiance. Radiance had an off day. They 3-0'd Radiance to get into the finals of UPL. And then over this last weekend, they lost to Mirage 2-1. And
Yep.
Mirage has been really slumping of late because I had them really high up on my list as well earlier in the season. I really think ANEW is going to take these like 3-1, maybe 3-2, but even if it's 3-2, it should look rather one-sided for ANEW. I just really want to see what NXI can do because I feel like if anyone's
Yeah.
going to propel 100 Thieves forward, it's got to be him because they really play through NXI. I know we were going through like the VODs yesterday, not with NXI, but they really play through NXI. Like, Copy will sack his lane in a heartbeat to help out that jungler. And same with Tenacity, now Fallen Bandit, who's even more supportive. Playing, I liked how Crono called that sack side top lane,
Yeah.
the weak side top lane. So, yeah, I think ANEW, they're getting not a lot of credit throughout this entire SGC season. I know that no matter what happens the next 2 nights, they're still locked in at that number 2 seed. That said, I think they're going to win both best of fives, and I hope that we get good series, but I think ANEW's favored.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
I
what do you
guess
have,
it's not
Smax?
that interesting.
What are your
So
thoughts, Max? I'm curious on this one.
my thoughts on this series. I don't have the advantage of being able to change my prediction. So I'm going to give you a spoiler for what my prediction's going to be on Wednesday, even if the results. Nah, I mean, I'm going to get it in for Wednesday, but I might feel differently then after tonight. It's a struggle, I know. But here's what I
we can change our predictions as we go on Wednesday.
maybe
Yeah, we
we
can.
could. Maybe we could.
No,
All
I
right.
know we can.
So
Yeah.
here's my prediction for tonight then.
Okay.
I'll give you my prediction for tonight, and if I'm right, then it's going to be the same for next day as well. I think that 100 Next are favored in this matchup. I think that they are going to have their way with this matchup really easily, actually.
What?
And I think it's because of NXI. Now, we've been talking a little bit. We've been doing a few VOD reviews and everything behind the scenes, a little bit in preparation for tonight and also tomorrow. And I think that NXI is at a similar level to where Kenvi is. And maybe that's just because of the team around him. He does have Copy and Jan and Otto, who are very, very good at playing around the jungle. But now they also have a supportive top laner as well, whereas Tenacity was usually going to get all the resources for the team. Now it is just the jungle position. And
Okay.
I think that NXI looks phenomenal in their games. Granted, I didn't see their loss against Mirage. That one was not streamed, so I didn't get to catch that one. Maybe I'm just talking crazy, and maybe he looked really bad in that one. I don't know. They did lose that series. But I think that NXI is the linchpin for 100 Next, and I think that they're actually favored in this match tonight. I'm going to give my prediction as a 3-1 for 100T, and you can take that to the bank tonight. When I'm right on UPL, you
Okay.
can come back to this VOD. You can clip it. Clip it, everyone. I'm saying it right now. 100 Next, 3-1 UPL.
Wow.
And then if they do it, and they're going to, I'm going to say the same thing tomorrow.
You're going to. Okay. Okay.
That's my prediction.
All right.
I wonder what Prussian is going to predict.
You're keeping things interesting, Smax. You're definitely keeping things interesting here. And they're a new roster, right? Like we aren't sure what they're gonna look like. I've
Yeah.
seen some good out of them. I've seen some bad. I think Fallen Bandit is really good on Ornn and Kennen, but
Yeah.
this guy, his job was coaching. He wasn't playing. Yes, he is ex COG Academy and LCS. He's a very good player, but I don't know how practiced he is. Like his GP didn't look good against Polaris. It looked pretty
He's had a
bad.
week.
He has had a week.
He's
So
had a week to practice.
if they kept on working on some things and sorting out some stuff with NXI, maybe, but I know what I'm gonna get pretty much from ANEW, and I think ANEW actually is playing around Mike Young really well right now. Like
Well,
they're
we'll see who's
taking
right.
Nidalee comps. Both teams are taking Nidalee comps. Actually, it's gonna be interesting to see who gets Nidalee.
Yeah.
I think NXI is gonna lean a little bit more towards Graves, whereas I think Mike Young might actually opt into Graves versus Trundle, and they might try and play through Shoryu. I think it's going to be a really interesting matchup, but I'm
Yeah.
excited to see what the games look like tonight. And for all you guys in here, that isn't going to be on Challengers Uprising tonight. It will be tomorrow. I believe our show starts at 7 p.m. Eastern. That said,
Sounds right.
we have the Upsurge show starting at 7:30 p.m. Eastern tonight with the pre-show. So we're going to have to see what that looks like. It's going to be fun.
And my two fellow deskers are going to be on that show as well. Rafa on the cast for that series with
Yep.
Alcattery, and then Cubby, you get to be on the desk with Travesty and Prussian, who I'm very excited to listen to on air as well. I've been a huge fan of Prussian's videos recently. He made a phenomenal one on Andy Bendy yesterday. Highly recommend checking that one out on YouTube.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really excited for that show. I think it's going to be a really cool insight into how Prussian thinks like as the games are going on, because of course he is one of the analysts over at Radiance, another team that did make top 8
Right.
for SGC. So I'm really excited to hear his thoughts on the game.
It's gonna be fun. I know that like when they were like throwing around like who to grab for a desk, they were like talking about like getting like a player or a coach, and I was like, just get Prussian. Like we know Prussian really well, and I don't know. I think he should feel confident going into the first cast. We're gonna make sure he looks good. This is like his first time doing this, I'm pretty sure, but he's really smart, so it's gonna be fun being on the cast with him. And I think we have a few differing opinions too, so I'm kind of looking forward to hashing those out.
Oh, is he on my side for 100 next? Is he gonna predict the same way as me?
None of us are on your side for 100
Oh.
next. Yeah.
Okay, well,
You're bold and alone, which I appreciate.
If 100X do win, which they will, they'll know that they picked the wrong cup analyst desker. So that's all I'll say.
They picked the wrong cupper. Well, we are going to have a third one, so you might have to get predictions from the third one, because I know you guys are going to be VOD reviewing tonight.
That is true. That is very true.
For the finals, real quick, before we move on to the rest of SGC and how those top 8 is going to look, we're going to have Veteran from EU joining us on the desk tomorrow. We've been working with him throughout the week. That guy's really smart. Tune in. It's going to be a lot of fun. So you can follow him on Twitter at Veteran EU, but also tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern, pre-show / Challengers Uprising on Twitch right here. Drop us a follow. Tune in. You'll see our lovely faces, probably dressed up a little bit nicer. I lost in fantasy points, so I have to go full jacket suit. It's going to be fun. I'm going to outdress Rafa. That's my goal. And
that's going to be tough.
I know. He's always looking real sharp. He's the desk host, man. He's a little dash. But yeah, tune in. It's going to be a really fun series, and I think what happens tonight is going to affect a lot of expectations coming into tomorrow. But different days, teams have different performances, and these are 2 of the best teams that we have in SGC. But Smax, moving on, we've got to talk about the top 8.
The top 8. It is fully locked in now. The results of tonight and tomorrow will not affect this at all. Like we mentioned, 100X already have first seed and ANEW already locked in second. But the bracket is as follows: 100X versus Frostfire, Radiance versus Mirage, Maryville versus Supernova, and ANEW versus Polar Ace. These matchups could not have been better if I scripted it myself.
Yeah, honestly, the top 8, it's really exciting because we have the 100 Thieves Next. Like, yes, they are the #1 seed. However, they have a different roster, and I think their performance has been a little bit more varying. And when we talked about teams and strengths and dark horses, I really think Frostfire is a dark horse. And keep in mind, in the Cup group, they went 1-1 against Frostfire. This is their only loss in groups was against Frostfire. And I think they match up really well in the 100 Thieves Next because they love playing through Quas. Fallen Bandit loves to play sack side. Sometimes that can get a little bit too much to overcome. I think it's going to be a really interesting matchup. Smax, what are you looking out for when you see the bracket?
Oh, I'm definitely looking at that matchup as well for the same reasons, but also Polar Ice almost 3-0'd 100 Next, and we just saw Frostfire taking Polar Ice down. The math adds up.
Yeah.
This could be a very, very favorable matchup.
I feel like we need more conspiracy graphics for you, Smax.
Oh, yeah,
You
yeah,
seem
absolutely.
really, you're like trying to like push my buttons, like where can we mess with Cubby? But I also feel like you really believe these.
I mean, I do.
I think
wouldn't say something I
Frostfire,
don't believe it.
like it's a best of 3, right? If it was a best of 5, I'd give it to 100 Thieves Next pretty confidently. Best of 3, I actually think that's one of the better series that we have. Another one, Mirage Radiance. Mirage taking down 100 Thieves Next. I hope they're starting to return to form. I think we saw Radiance peak a little bit earlier in the season, and they're a little bit back further down to earth. But that said, I feel like both these teams are a really interesting matchup, and both junglers are going to fight a lot. That's going to be the exciting one.
Yeah. Selfishly for me, my matchup to look out for is going to be the repeat of the Focus Finals, the
Yes.
Maryville versus Supernova matchup.
Yes.
I absolutely.
Okay,
oh my goodness.
We need to go through something here. So I was a prophet. I predicted in Twitch chat to Clydebot that they would 3-2 those Focus Finals, and I was right. And so far, my profiteering has been rather good for Supernova. So if any members of any SGC teams would like me to profit for them and call the 3-2 finals victory or whatever I think, please let me know. That said, this is a best of 3. I think Maryville is starting to perform much better lately. This is hands down the closest series, right? In all seriousness, this is a series that I have circled. I think this one is the most interesting. The one that I don't have circled, and it's going to be a go next, is going to be ANEW versus Polar Race. Those we don't have to worry about those.
Yeah. Don't think that one's going to be close.
No, I don't think Polar Race matches up well to ANEW. I think they get pub stomped early, and Frost Force is stepping in, and I think he's done an admirable job considering how little time he's had to mesh with that roster and how difficult a role it is to incorporate when it comes to finding a new jungler. That said, they're done. Like they're
tough draw. It is what it is. Maybe ANEW leave up LeBlanc for Busio, but that's the only way I see them winning, actually. But yeah, you mentioned how your profiteering advice is available to all. My bodyguarding is also available. I'm sure you saw in that image. I'm pretty handy with that spear.
Smack's been pumping iron, man. We're both just jacked humans on this pod.
Actually, like this shirt is actually
arm wrestle
holding back my giant muscles. It's a magic shirt. My muscles are actually like this big, but the shirt, you can't see it. But anyway,
your shirt breaks the camera every single time.
It absolutely does. I should wear less magical shirts, really, if I wanted my camera to work with me. But it is what it is. I am very excited for this top 8. I know you mentioned it is best of 3. I didn't actually know it was best of 3. Do you know when?
I think it's best of 3 and then best of 5s. I don't know.
Starting in semis.
Yeah, because I know that like we were also like thinking about casting it, and then we like got funky because like I don't know when Facet's broadcast steps in. That said, we might be on some of those broadcasts run by Rebel. We may not. We'll have to find out. But either way,
I would love.
I'm excited for the top 8, and actually after the finals tonight and tomorrow, I know that my tier list went over rather well with the amateur community. I'm going to be writing a preview for top 8 and the 8 teams in the matches and what viewers who are not familiar with SGC should look out for when watching these teams and kind of trying to get some more people into SGC, because I really think there's a lot of talent on these rosters, and I want to get more eyes on these guys and help grow their brand, as even though it's outside of Cup, because there are a lot of good players that I think could move up to amateur. Like specifically, I mean, like Five Fire, we've already seen Tenacity and Kenby move up. I think Mike Young's performing really well and kind of has a little bit of his flair and confidence back. And then you have like players in other teams that are very talented, like Busio, like APA, even Spearaxe for Dark Matter has been really good. And that's just mid laners, right? Like we can go through a bunch more. I know you're a big fan of Andy Bendy.
Yes.
So yeah, I want to see if we can get like some more eyes on these guys, and hopefully everyone that plays can help get some more eyes on themselves too, because it should be a really exciting SGC. I really I think ANEW goes through, just given the side of the bracket that they have. Like, I think they're much better than their side, but I think the top side's a little bit more interesting given the fact that 100 Thieves just has a roster change, right? That was old 100 Thieves. They plow through it, right? Like, that team's way too good, but they're very supportive. They need Yawn and Copy to step up more, which they have been doing, but not in every game. Like, there's still a lack of consistency coming out from the team is 5, right? They changed out 2 members.
Well, Cubby, to wrap up our final episode of season 1 of Challengers Chatroom, because this is the last one, we've got our Cup finals tomorrow, which I'm very excited about.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you, Cubby, have any shout outs you'd like to give as our final episode of the Challengers Chatroom?
It is our final episode.
Unless we have another season. Maybe they give us
we don't know if we're being brought back or not.
Yeah,
I would love to work with Cup again, but we'll have to see what happens there. And this podcast has been a lot of fun. Shout outs to Cup for doing this. I know we mentioned a podcast about talking to players and growing brands, and they kind of ran with it. And this was the first guest where we didn't have full control over who we picked. But also we really wanted to talk to Crono. We were really happy when he came on. We appreciate we pretty much pick the guests we write through on the show. And we appreciate the freedom that we've been given. And thanks to Cup, to all of our sponsors as well and our partners. And shout out to you, Smax. It's been a lot of fun doing this podcast with you. And of course, producer Lauren, who you guys do not see or hear, but we do. He's in our ear. He's the one pushing all the funny subtitles and the memes, and it takes an hour and a half out of his day to make sure that we're set up and sound good and look good. So big shout outs to him. He also does the analyst desk primarily as well. He won't be with us tomorrow, but he's been awesome all season.
Follow him on Twitter at Milkman Lauren.
Yes. He posts he posts dank memes. It's at Leche Lauren, by the way. Yeah.
Oh, it is? Oh.
Yeah.
My mistake. Oh, Milkman Lauren is his Twitch. That's what it is.
Yes. We're just promoting all of Lauren. Don't follow us. Go follow Lauren.
Yeah, absolutely. But yes, it has been an absolute pleasure of making this podcast, co-hosting it with you, getting all of our guests on. I particularly liked that episode where we had just 5 different people on.
Yeah, the playoff preview was really fun. I very much enjoyed that.
Yep. So it's been an absolute blast. I am looking forward to seeing what we can do in the future like this as well. So yeah, it's been a whole lot of fun. Thank you to you, Cubby. Thank you to you, Lauren, and thank you to all of you watching as well. We've got fans, which is crazy.
We have fans?
I think so. I mean, Crono said he was a fan. He watched.
I don't have any fans in the room, Smax. I don't know what you're talking about.
Look at this. I've got one right. Okay. Well,
Smax is a small fan. He's a small fan.
There's a small fan right there. I've got another one at my feet, but I'm not going to pick up because that one didn't even get into the frame. But...
Understandable.
Anyway, thank you so much for tuning into this final episode of Challengers Chatroom Season 1. We will see you all tomorrow for the Challengers Uprising Grand Finals, and tonight in the Twitch chat for UPL Finals as well over at twitch.tv/Upsurge Esports. Cubby's going to be on the screen. I'm going to be in the Twitch chat, and I hope you are as well. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.